Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty. Senator, it's great to have you on the program. The TikTok bill is now headed to the Senate after passing overwhelmingly in the House. Two questions for you. Do you think the Senate will pass it, and how will you vote?
I think the first thing to do is to make clear to our audience what this exposure and what this risk is. That's of great concern. And I think it's a great bipartisan concern here. You saw the vote coming out of the House, and that's this, that the national security laws in China require any Chinese-owned or controlled company, as long as the data resides on their servers somewhere. It doesn't matter where it originates. It could originate in the United States, but that data is susceptible to Chinese Communist Party surveillance. That's the concern here that we're trying to get at. We don't want Americans' data subjected to Chinese Communist Party surveillance. I backed legislation that would stop the Chinese Communist Party from having access to Americans' genomic data, DNA data. So this is the concern that we're trying to get at here. What we don't want to do, though, by the same token, and I heard the conversation earlier, I don't think we want to see more power go to the hands of companies like Meta, Google, et cetera. What we want to see is, the users of TikTok to have an option here in America, but there's just one that doesn't expose their data to the Chinese Communist Party. That's the needle that we're trying to thread right here.
I want to talk about the power that it might be giving the executive branch, because there's a lot of talk about how this bill only relates to foreign adversaries, but other people on X, Vivek Ramaswamy, one of them, saying that it acts more like a Trojan horse, where it applies to a lot of websites and not just apps. How are you thinking about this piece of legislation?
I think that it's got to be very specific as it's crafted, and it's got to get through the Senate here. But I think it has to be very specific that it is entities that are controlled, that are foreign adversary controlled entities, like the CCP in China, like Russia, like Iran, like North Korea. Those types of entities are what we should be focused on.
Senator, one of the big questions is, if TikTok ends up being sold, who buys it? I want you to listen to your colleague, Senator Lindsey Graham, on that one.
I want to divest the Chinese Communist Party from our data. That's going to require American sale. So I'm leaning yes, but here's the problem. If you shut down TikTok and there's no competition for Meta and Facebook and Google, they become the most dominant force in America. So I'd like to have somebody in the conservative world buy TikTok.
So, Senator, he'd like to have a conservative buy TikTok. I don't think you can force that kind of sale. How are you thinking through that next step?
I think you're right in terms of what you can force in a divestiture, but I'll say this. The sentiment that Senator Graham raised is a very real one, because we've seen these large platforms like Meta with a bias towards censorship of conservative voices. That's what Senator Graham is speaking to, and I think that is a very real concern. We don't want to create, more market power for those entities that are inclined to come in and censor American speech. We saw Meta's involvement, censoring the New York Post article back in the 2020 elections with regard to Hunter Biden's laptop. We don't want that type of situation to occur here, and I think that the sentiment that Senator Graham raised is a very real one.
Senator, we thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for being here.
Good to be with you.